Morning, everybody. It's 14 euros a pint in the bar. That's what I woke up thinking about this morning. It is ridiculous. Somehow we've got to solve that later on tonight, and I have a plan. Anyway, thank you to Digiday for having me, us, all of you. It's great, and good choice of venue as well, I would say. Conor.
Hello.
You need no introduction because you've just been speaking, but I'm going to introduce Steve because I hope I've got this right, but Steve is a world record holder.
I was.
You was.
I was.
In 2008, Steve set a world record, and he was in the Guinness Book of Records. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
I set the world record for eating the most number of bananas in a minute. No, thanks. No, don't clap, because basically no one had set that world record before. So the world record for 1 year only was 2. Now you don't want to clap anymore, do you? Thanks for bringing that up.
No, it's fine. I did my research last night. Bananas are 18 euros a go. So
right.
We had to go.
Beer it is then.
So, anyway, to business. So this is a deep dive in 20 minutes, so that's pretty impossible. We're going to give it a go. Conor, I want to pick up on data, because if we talk about programmatic, as you said, it's a tool, not a strategy. Data has to be at the heart of it, and I think you're hinting at the fact that data is the goldmine for publishers, and perhaps publishers are not. They're aware of it, but they're not necessarily mining it efficiently. Can we talk a little bit about how you approach data at RTE, and as head of research and insight, one assumes you've got data when you're not eating your bananas all around you. So can we have a little bit of a deep dive into what first-party data, or even third-party, or something else? How are you guys tackling it?
Well, we started building our own first-party data back in 2013 with the launch of RTE ID. It was a start in that we built it for a specific purpose, which allowed RTE player users to watch a program on their desktop, pick it up on their tablet, and then at home, if they have a connected TV, continue on. And we just sat and watched it. It was our first foray. We were unsure, do we want to put up a wall? Do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? And we actually looked at it and we said, okay, see how it goes. We then started using it in a more strategic fashion in certain programming that we run through where you may want to engage with the audience. So we have, each year, there's a program called Operation Transformation. It's about getting fit. It's eight weeks, the start of the year. You have leaders, and those leaders have particular regimes because they're all different shapes and sizes. And in order to follow a leader, we said, okay, we'll sign up. We'll then be able to personalize our communications to you because you're following that particular leader. This is their regime, so this is what they're eating. And so we started engaging in a two-way conversation in that regard. That's fine. We integrated that then in with our analytics, which probably blew the lid off the amount of data that we had. So we had data in terms of page impressions, duration, you name it, visits, where they're traveling to. But then we put another layer in terms of demographics, gender. And it actually got to a stage of going really unwieldy. And so we recognized then that we had a very strong need to have someone who could actually analyze this. And that's what we've been doing for the last year. In terms of segmentation, which is the third step in order to allow us to commercialize it, we've been working on that for a year to make sure that we get it right. So it's a slow process, but I'd advocate you do a slow process, because if you plug in a third-party data aggregator, it's essentially that. It's a third party. It's based on cookie information. Cookie information can be on a multi-use PC. So, most of us have a multi-use PC or tablet at home. I'm constantly being served ads for women's lingerie, and it's not because I'm a cross-dresser, it's because my wife uses it too. So we steer clear of that. We've done bespoke research, and where possible, where we can use it, we've added that in to enrich the data.
Wow. HuffPost, how do you approach the audience data
Well, I'd say
challenge? Is it a slow process like that takes time, or are you just...
Yeah, in some ways we've been beneficial. I mean, Huffington Post being part of the larger AOL group, you know, we have resources that we can tap into that help us accelerate that. So things like advertising.com, you know, a huge ad network, 20 odd years of learning and experience plugged into that. So we do have, I think, a bit of a head start in some cases in terms of understanding how our users are behaving. At a very simplistic level, it's enabled us to, you know, if as Conor, I think, said during his presentation, you know, if you want to target mums or, a technology-based audience, whatever it might be, I think in the past we were stuck to going, right, well, you buy vertically on our parenting channel or on our technology channel, whatever it might be. And now, because we have that first-party data and we're able to analyse it much more deeply, we can find those audiences wherever they are, you know, and that's actually enabled us to work more closely with our buying partners and get their trust and get them to actually accept that they're going to reach this technology audience wherever they happen to be across the Huffington Post, not just within that technology channel. And that's actually enabled us to actually push our CPMs up.
Okay. You mentioned working more closely with your demand partners, or agency partners. Programmatic, as explained earlier on, and when I first came across it, whenever it was X years ago, it was you can sack your sales team and it will all run itself and it will be great. And you can also throw the fax machine out and no lunch. So that's, all of that is shit, and it's clearly hasn't worked out that way. How do you, as a publisher, work more closely with the agency partner in a programmatic world? Because presumably they are interested in that data segment. How are you, is lunch banned at Huffington Post?
Absolutely.
Can you still go and have lunch with the agency
in
partners?
In fact, I'd say it becomes more important than ever before. It's an incredibly competitive landscape. You do not want to sit on your laurels and just rely on the buyer at their end, kind of having the understanding of your brand and your audience that you would want and expect them to have. I think, Conor, you already made the point. What we're talking about here is automating a process. What we're not talking about is completely making the human element of that process redundant. You're always going to need salespeople who have that in-depth knowledge and understanding of the brand and audience to go out and evangelize those brands and products, to develop those relationships, and then the inefficiencies in that process are then taken care of by the automation side of things. That the human aspect of programmatic, I think, is one of the biggest challenges to overcome. And I understand why, on the sales side, you can understand why the salespeople are feeling so threatened by it. And we've been, I guess again, we've been fortunate in that we've been able to repurpose the majority of our sales team and kind of have them focused on, while the automation is taking care of some of the more transactional stuff, let's explore what we can do from a creative aspect. The relationship between programmatic and creativity, in my mind, is really strong. It's freeing us up to do more of the, let's drop a second buzzword in. We're talking programmatic. We may as well mention native as well. For us, it helps us do much more of the upper funnel. That's actually much more labour intensive, but at the end of the day, much more profitable. So we're trying to turn our sales force away from that kind of mundane, repetitive, frankly unprofitable work, and actually have them steer more into the areas where they can make a real difference to the business.
Okay. I've got a quote, and I don't know this character, but he sounds quite interesting. Ramsey McGrory, I'm sure you must know him, Nick, used to head up Right Media, and describing automated advertising, his kind of strapline was that you need to embrace the murkiness. I kind of like that as a quote, because certainly from an AOP perspective and other business that I look after, I just find murkiness wherever we go. And we can sit up here and say we're doing a deep dive into programmatic, here are the 3 takeaways, the 3 R's. It feels murky from a publisher perspective. So how do the publishers in this room, all of whom are brilliant and are all way ahead of everybody else, if that's possible, how do they embrace the murkiness? What's the, if nothing else out of this session, what is the one thing that you think you're doing better than the rest of the people in the room in terms of embracing that murkiness, if you agree that it is murky?
Well, I suppose being Irish, you view things with a crooked eye, and the
allegedly.
murky. Well, I'll freely admit it. The murkiness basically allows people to become specialists. So when you've got murkiness, you've got mystery, it's complexity, and all of a sudden you've got programmatic specialists. And you go into any job vacancies, I'm hiring a programmatic specialist. It's rubbish, right? There are no programmatic specialists. Like I said,
they're all looking for them because they phone me and say, do you know any programmatic specialists?
But that's the thing, there aren't any. I think the important thing is to look at it in that regard. I mean, like I said, programmatic is in beta, and it is because it's constantly evolving. If you're a specialist, you're probably out of date at this moment in time. And I think you need to look at it and that was my epiphany moment in terms of, we'll never be able to handle this. Hang on a second, let's just cut it down to basics. Simplify it. If you simplify it, then you can embrace the murkiness because you can understand it.
Great answer, simplification. HuffPost?
I think the biggest move that we made in the last 12 months was to make all of our inventory available programmatically. We premium formats, kind of premium top tier inventory in terms of session depth, for example. I think it kind of moved us away from this idea that it was always going to be, and again, you've already touched on the idea of it being about remnant and about RTB, to actually this can be a means for you to sell the premium end of your business. And that was a big step for us. I think we were the first publisher in the UK, certainly, to have made that move. And I think that again clears the murkiness from a client and from a buyer perspective, because you do have that trust. And again, it takes you into being able to have brand conversations as opposed to just DR kind of conversations. So we're trying to clear the murk along those lines.
So is it helpful to use the word murkiness or simplification? What's the right way of distilling down the challenge on programmatic advertising? Is it as simple as, hang on, this is just advertising, it's just got a P in front of it, it's confusing us with a lexicon that seems to dominate every conference you go to? It helps us sell tickets if you put programmatic in the title, for example, because people turn up. But I'm being cynical about it, but is this about advertising, generally? That we're having a deep dive about advertising, know your audience, good placement, good pricing, all that good old-fashioned stuff that we all grew up with? Or is programmatic really different? Is it different to advertising, or is it just another word? Why are we hung up on programmatic?
Well, exactly. I mean, like if you look at programmatic 10 years ago would have been an ad network. Programmatic 20 years ago would have been text messaging. Instead of ringing all my friends, I'll do a broadcast one-to-many and I've reached them all at once. So it's just a term for where people are at a particular moment in time. People want to, essentially the difficulty we've had is it's the educational piece from both the demand side and the supply side, where the supply side are going, and the demand side, I want to reduce my price. And I've had agencies come to me and say, we're going to buy programmatically now. Great, how do you want to buy it? Well, we want to buy by site channel. And because we're buying by site channel programmatically, we're going to reduce the price by 20%. Well, sure, we can buy by site channel now. That's not programmatic. Well, we're only going to, buy a couple of hundred impressions. Okay, well, if you're only going to buy a couple of hundred impressions, it's going to be €100. Because the thing about it is, and this is a great misnomer, is that people have said, I've used programmatic and I've been getting, €50 CPM. We got a €30 CPM for Amex. They bought 3 impressions. That's 15 cents. You know what I mean? So you need to understand what you're stepping into, and the programmatic allows it to become murky and go, it's a dark art. It's not.
No, I think one of the real challenges with this is, this is an industry that was founded on creativity and human ingenuity, and I think the real big, we talk about, the transition, that was kind of brought up yesterday. It's unsettled the industry, I think, as a whole. One of the reasons I'm here primarily is we did a study last year that looked at, it was industry wide, and it looked at other publishers and it also looked at the buy side. we asked, to what degree do you think programmatic is changing your job? You know, whether that was not at all the way up to, Jesus Christ, I come in every day and I have no idea what I'm doing. 91% of the people that responded said there was some element of change in their role as a result of programmatic, you know, whether that be buy or sell side. So I think that level of potential disruption, you know, to people's comfort zones, and again, Conor, you know, you had it there. I think that's why we're kind of really gravitating around it. You know, it's affected, I think, the makeup of what we do across the industry, and it has unsettled. And I would say certainly that the agency side, the buyer side, are much further down the track with it. You know, I think they've embraced it much more fully. I think they see the broader potential of it. They want to work with a handful of people that want to go with them on that journey. And the longer that we spend as publishers, I think, kind of sat here examining our own navel, kind of trying to figure it out, we are in danger of getting left behind. So there is that kind of sense that if you're kind of like King Canute going, right, look, I need to protect, you know, my integrity, I need to prop up my CPMs or whatever it might be, I genuinely think that at some point you're going to find that this has run away from you. And I think that's why it's become such a big issue, and that's why we're talking around it so regularly.
You mentioned disruption and or change. They kind of mean the same thing, but they have a different tone to it. So if you say, I'm working on a change project, it's quite positive. Not many people go in and say, I'm working on a disruption project, because that sounds a bit kind of explodey. How is programmatic driving change? Is it driving change? Are you using it as a tool to educate your boards, so the bosses in the room or the bosses who are not here? Is programmatic a convenient vehicle to hide as a sort of Trojan horse of change because it's new and everyone's talking about it, trendy? Is it part of this change disruption thing?
Well, I think the reason why I'm in the digital space is because it's in constant flux. And that's the great thing about it. You won't stay in digital if you don't like change. When I started talking about programmatic in our business, the top table guys were saying, has this got something to do with TV programs? No, it hasn't. So all of a sudden, I'm that technical guy in the corner that people say, does anybody understand what he's saying? So you have to be really careful in that regard. But it is change. We are in a constant state of flux. Even if you look at that Chief Martech slide from 976 to 1850 number of companies, the great thing about digital is there are no barriers to entry. And so everybody can come in, anybody can come in and create some new technology. They can create their own ecosystem. I've 4 email addresses, 3 Twitter accounts, a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, 2 blogs, and a website under construction, and that's just me. So you just sort of look at it and say, okay, you have to embrace the change. If you want to remain in the digital space, you have to embrace the change.
Very good. Has the sale of bananas gone up near your office? Because if I was a banana salesman, I would definitely set up my stall right outside your office, because I reckon that the sales would go up.
No, I'm sick of bananas now, actually.
Okay, I'm going to leave this panel with a serious question to both of them, which is linked to the banana issue. If your challenge between now and the next time we have a €14 pint is to set a world record, what would be your world record that you would be able to set between now and, say, 6 o'clock tonight? You can't answer bananas. Conor. We haven't rehearsed this, by the way, I've just put them on the spot. Got some time to think?
Well, last night I was saying to some people that I took a KPI for Q4 last year in terms of getting as many complaints about advertising on the site as possible. Because
RTE are well known for that on their company.
Yeah. So the reason being that the more advertising complaints, the lower my target will be this year. So I'm still striving for that. I think we should probably set some kind of a league table amongst publishers who can get the most advertising complaints.
Again, Guinness World Record. Okay, that's a different answer than I expected. But Steve, you're already a former world record holder.
Been there, done that.
And by the way, the beers are on you later. But
No, I would say right now, given the speed of expansion of not just the Huffington Post business. I mean, although I'm here representing HuffPost today, I work across a huge swathe of different businesses under the AOL banner. So I'd say the amount of times I have to come and do things like this on different topics, I'm going to say plate spinning.
Plate spinning?
Yeah. Getting pretty good at plate spinning these days.
Probably line a few up and get them on stage just before the VIP meetings.
Great.
A few €14 beers first, I think, before I give it a go.
The great thing about being a moderator is I don't have to answer that question myself. So
Thanks.
anyway, that was our deep dive on programmatic in 20 minutes. Clearly, there's more to talk about, but thank you for your attention. Please, round of applause for Conor and Steve.